episode of Journey with Michael and Ryan. I was just catching up with myself there for a second.
What were you catching up on?
Just the hello, the welcome. I've done it 54 times and, it's every now and then I'm like, maybe I could change it. But I'm like, nah, let's just keep going. Hello, welcome. Thank you for joining us for another week with Journey with Michael and Ryan. I am Michael, this is Ryan, and we love having you here. Thank you for stopping by and listening to what we have to say.
Yes, welcome everybody. So this week we're going deeper into the world that is rebirthing.
Yes.
This week we're going to be talking about cold water rebirths. We're going to be talking about our journey and experiences with cold water rebirths and the way in which they're different to warm water and dry rebirths, which we've spoken about before. And then we're just going to go deeper into some of the practices, deeper into the journey that we're on going back as facilitator trainers for another 12 months with our mentors.
Yeah, and we're 4 months into that journey now, and just there have been, we've spoken many times on this podcast how transformative that first 9-month journey was for us, and I feel like we're having that 9-month journey every single month, going back and doing it this time round. So plenty to share on all of that. So super excited to bring all that up. And again, we're just giving the people what they want. I mean, the most listened to episodes that we have on our podcast by at least 10 to 20 to 1 are our Rebirthing Breathwork episodes. So there's obviously a bit of a hunger for it. And so we're going to call this episode Rebirthing 3. Nice and simple.
3.0, baby. Keep it coming.
Yeah, so if you followed along the journey, you'll understand what we're saying here already. But let's just give it a quick overview of rebirthing itself. So in our first one, we spoke about what rebirthing breathwork is, a connective conscious breathing. We call it a dry rebirth because it's done obviously on the floor or on a mat or whatever, and just the process that is. And then we spoke about in our second one a hot water rebirth, where the breathwork is taken into a spa pool at 37 degrees and you do the breathwork under the water there, obviously with the facilitator in there with you. You've got a snorkel and a nose clip on and you do the full hours rebirth in there. And the next evolution and the final evolution is the cold water rebirth. So that's done at about 15 degrees cold water. It's not freezing or anything like that, but it's the take your sword and go down to the depths to fuck up whatever's within you. And it is not for the faint-hearted. And I personally haven't even taken a client through a cold water rebirth yet.
No, neither. Just ourselves.
Yeah.
And Venusia, realistically, the only people that have guided through cold water. 2, because it's a little bit more challenging, just to set it up. And 3, because just of the depth of it. The depth of it. There's so much that you can get from a dry rebirth and a warm water rebirth that the cold water really is there is it's like an emergency breath.
Yeah.
Like for us, it's like when we know that there's something that's really holding us back, there's something that we can't see within ourselves, that there's just a huge shadow that's continually playing out, or a pattern that we keep falling into. That's essentially when we fall onto the cold water rebirths.
Yeah. And as well, I think there's a build up to get to that point. Like I've had clients that have worked with me and they've done 10, maybe 15 rebirths, and we've gone into the hot and things like that. But it needs to be kind of past that before we're taking someone into the cold and being like, okay, here it is. So you've got to earn your right to get in there.
Totally.
That's obviously what it is, because it's not for the faint-hearted. You're not going in there, and having a joyful time. Like there's some real shit that goes on within your body that you need to prep yourself for with the other 2 scenarios before you get there.
Totally. And so even just like pre-framing and preferencing it, it's like cold water rebirths is just like a general form of breath work. Yes, you might go back to a birth experience and there may be rebirths, but quite often it's about rebirthing from experiences. Now, when you go into the warm water rebirth, that actually, because it's a very similar body temperature, because there's fluid around you, most people go back to their actual birth experience. They go back to being in the womb, being in that comfortable place, and working through some of the situations and scenarios that would have played out leading up to birth, either going through the birth canal or some of the experiences that they would have had in the womb.
Yeah.
And then cold water rebirth, it's like a psychedelic experience.
Yeah.
It's like a psychedelic experience. There's so much more going on. There's so much more somatically that happens because of the cold. like your body shivers and it shakes, and there is chance for hallucinations. It really does help you go like deeper into your psyche. And that's why it's important for us as facilitators to know the people that we're guiding through that experience, like to know their story, to know their breath, to know what they can tolerate, to know what they've been through before, so you can actually premise that experience for them.
Yeah, it's super advanced, and I'm not saying that it is an arrogant statement. It just is. It's an advanced level of this type of breath work.
For sure.
And I mean, I've probably done maybe 7 or 8 cold water rebirths in my whole status quo of breath work. And so that just goes to show, just how important it is, and it's used in times where it's needed. And I remember our very second podcast we released, I spoke about going in and doing a cold water rebirth there, but it didn't go into the premise or anything like that. But I actually did a cold water rebirth January 1st. You took me through one through at the start of this year, actually, which was a really great way to start. There was just I was just lying there, and there was just a notion of I need to go in and do this. It wasn't even like it was something there. It was just that there was the calling to do it. And I listened to the calling and asked you and said, hey, can you come and facilitate this for me? And it took me through into a place of actually some sexual abuse that I had no idea that was there. I mean, it wasn't very deep because it only happened about 10 years ago. It was when I was in a blackout, a drunk blackout. And what I remember, and I've never even thought about it until I went into that rebirth, was just in the body. But what it took me back to was actually that morning where I woke up and I just had no clothes on. And there was a work colleague of mine. He was sitting on the couch. He had no pants on, and my body in the water just shook it out. Like it just shook it out. It was really interesting because, back then obviously you used to just drink to blackout, and that was just what I did. But it was really interesting to go into a place somatically that I had no memory of. And that's the power of the cold water. And like you facilitated me, I was shaking it out. I went into it and I was really confused because I was like, where the hell did this come from? And it wasn't something I was really had invaded my psyche or anything. Like it wasn't something that had really invaded my life. There was no triggers or reactions or anything like that. But it was just it was an experience that happened in my body whilst I didn't consciously remember it. And I was in it, and I was shaking, and I was saying no, and I was like, oh, what's this? And going, and my body just started violently shaking. And then all of a sudden, it was like, it just stopped. And I was like, whoa, that was, fuck. Okay, there you go. And so that's just a little, thumbnail of what a cold water rebirth does. Like within the cold, there's nothing in your body can hide. Nothing can hide, and so a past experience or a trauma that you've gone through, it will be stuck in the body somewhere throughout your psyche, your nervous system, your egoic self, whatever you want to call it. But because of the cold, you're shaking a little bit already. So your body's already tensing up. And so on a physical level, it's actually starting to move that energy that's stuck within whatever place within your body is held. And so that starts to permeate and move through. And once you're in a cold water, sometimes you get what's called the spins as well when you're really into it. Not necessarily in a bath. I don't feel like you've got enough.
It's more when you're suspended
water,
in the ocean.
When you're in a big
body of water.
Body of water, that's right. Yeah. And you just start to get these really slow spins, and it's kind of like you're spinning with the same spin of the earth, and you're really going through that, and it really buzzes you out. But the power of a cold water rebirth, it is really, really adventurous.
Yeah, totally. And it's it is an experience, and we can go back to like our first cold waters. How about that?
Yeah, I think
let's talk about that, because it's a powerful experience. And Pauline and David are witches and wizards. Like, she's been doing this for 45 years. She is our spiritual mum and dad. Realistically, they are our mentors. They are the ones that are guiding us through the process of becoming breathwork facilitator trainers.
Yeah.
And when they guide people through the cold water, it's in Raglan. It's at a beach. There's lots of different people around.
It's in public.
You are in an estuary. They have lots of other people swimming around. You are just exposed to nature and the experience and the energy of the water and really being fully suspended. Like, you're not touching the ground, but you have a facilitator that's essentially holding you in place and guiding you throughout that experience. And it's, as you say, it's very somatic. It's very in the body. Like, the shakes just come on really quick. They roll through, they come in waves, and it really is more, for me personally, the cold water rebirths that I've had, it's never really taken me back to something, but it's always been an extremely somatic experience. Like, lots of shaking, lots of energy moving, and it's like you're tapping into things that are unknown, into the things that are unknown that your mind may be hiding you from, or the mind is maybe just not even consciously aware of, but your body still remembers the experience. Your body still is holding on to it. Like, your cellular memory and your network and the energy of the experience is still there. And throughout the breath, you just start to feel it release. You start to feel the shakes. You start to feel it moving. And then you come out of it like you've been baptized.
The true baptism.
The true baptism.
The true baptism.
By the breath.
Yeah. A good way to describe it would be, once you've finished it, you've got Bambi legs trying to walk up. In that cold water session, I still remember it vividly. Like, I didn't go back to like experiences of my life. It was just a very somatic experience. Had the slow spins, but then it was the most hallucinogenic. You know what I mean? It's a hot day today. It was the most psychedelic breathwork I'd ever done. Because what happened is I actually ended up going into the womb of the universe, and I remember just being in the womb of this universe, and I kind of like tucked up like a little ball into the fetal position, and I was just in there, and I was slowly spinning around, and as I kept breathing, my body just kept violently shaking, and then I just kind of like got spat out of this universal womb, and I can see the visuals, and even now, like, they're embedded into my psyche, into my memory, and it was just such an extraordinary experience. And obviously did the full rebirth, went through shake. Actually, I think Sonia was actually partnering with me that day in all her profound energy. And then trying to walk on the beach. It's like you've spun around so many times around a broomstick, and then you try and run like that game. That's how you feel, and just had to sit down, and it was an incredible experience. Yeah, a very shifting experience.
A very powerful experience, yeah, for sure. And it takes a bit to integrate. You know, normally it would take about 2 to 3 days for a dry water rebirth to integrate. It takes about a week for a warm water rebirth to integrate. And a cold water can take a month. Yeah. Could take 2, could take 3 months. Because you're going so deep into the healing process, it can take a while. It shifts some stuff. It rips out a part of you. It reconnects you, to the universe. It's profound.
Oh, it really did, and it's really been a good saver of mine to, when I know there's just something there, and this is just something that resonates really with who I am and how I show up. I am an all or nothing guy. Like, I'm like all in, and I'm like, okay, I'm getting this. So when I was literally, would have been this time last year, I was going through a fucking big dark night of the soul, grief, fucking all this sort of stuff. And I was just in this place of like, I've got to go and fucking face this. And so I was crying, and you weren't even here. I had to get Venusia. I'm like, Van, I need you to just sit next to me and don't let me get up whilst I'm in this cold water. Sure. And I was just crying in the bathroom. I was just like letting it go. I was just like, and just stripped down, got into the cold water, and just breathed my fucking life. And it was like I was armoring up for battle. Like I was like, I'm taking my sword and I'm going into the depths of me, and I am facing whatever this was. And that's when I really started to comprehend a big commitment wound that I had there, and various other things. And I was like, right, I'm taking the head off this snake, and I just stayed in. So you can use it like that. It's a tool. If there's like, I don't know what this is, there's something there, it's huge, it's big, or I can't shake it, I've breathed here and it's not really shaking. All right, I'm going into the depths, and that's where you can armor up and get in there.
Totally. Totally. And it's always followed by a dry as well. So when you do a cold water rebirth, you should always follow it up with a dry, just because it helps bring you back. Brings you back into your body, helps integrate that experience even more.
Yep.
So it's like even the power of having 2 rebirths in one day, like that's a big day. There's a lot of work. You know, that's years of therapy that you've worked through. But to do a cold and then a dry, it's just, they work so well together. It was needed, realistically.
Yeah. So here's a little story. So Sonia, who was actually on our podcast a few episodes ago, she did the training with us. During our training, me and her met up. So we hired a hotel room in Takapuna that had a big corner bathtub, and so we were like, all right, we're going to get in here, we're going to do a hot water and a cold water, and we're really going to go in. And so that's what we did. We were there all afternoon. We jumped in, did the hot water, she jumped in, did the hot water, jumped into the cold water, and jumped into the cold water. It was a super big afternoon. Wow.
What did Pauline say about that afterwards?
She said that you should have done it the other way around.
She was like, oh my God. She was like, always start with the cold. And we're like, okay, duly noted.
Yeah.
I love it. But yeah, that's just the power of it. You know, it's like, it's so interesting because, you know, we're in a lot of breathwork communities. We know a lot of different breathwork facilitators, but we don't really connect with many other actual rebirthing breathwork facilitators.
No.
And so even the concept for them of warm water and cold water rebirths is a new experience.
Yes.
You know, it's new knowledge.
Yeah.
It's like a new understanding that's actually a potential tool as well.
Yeah.
And you really do need to be trained in it because there's like a few subtle nuances that you do need to know to be able to hold someone in that space because it's completely different to guiding people through a dry.
Correct.
So you have to have that experience yourself once. You have to have the knowledge and understanding of the potential risks that can come with it too.
Yep.
You know, people sometimes are going to try duck themselves. You know, people are going to try chuck themselves under the water.
Yep.
You know, if they have that suicidal urge, there's a potential for that to happen. So you have to be on your game the whole time. You can't just sit back and let it happen because when people are doing it, like they're not face up, they're face down, snorkel on, nose clip in, and just breathing.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's beautiful because there's so much more, as a facilitator, there's so much more non-verbal communication that's going on because you can't have that same conversation or guidance throughout. There's merely just hand gestures, cues, placing hands on different body parts, shifting energy, you know, when they come up and have a release, just getting them back down into the water. It's beautiful.
Oh, it's powerful. Yeah, you really have to run on your intuition. You've really got to be tuned in, you know, and seeing what's shaking in their body, seeing how they're starting to move, you know. And this is where it really comes back, and we've spoken about this a lot, that, you know, we have to continually be going to the depths of ourselves to be able to hold people in a safe way, you know. And I think this is why, I mean, if you ask Pauline about, you know, breath workers and not understanding, you know, the water rebirthing, she's like, oh, well, they clearly haven't reached the level. That's just the way that she sees rebirthing breathwork, you know. I mean, the breathwork's been around for 60 years, she's done it for 45, you know, like. So, all right, cool, you've earned that right.
yeah, for sure. These are facilitators that have been doing it for 5 years.
And so, you know, and this is why we talk about it a lot, because it is so profound. You know, and you could be listening to this and you might have done a whole bunch of breath work and plant medicine, but you might not have even heard of doing breath work under the water, and you might be sitting there going, Jesus, what the hell are these guys talking about? A lot of people get that. We get that response from a lot of people, but it is just another tool in the arsenal. And so, if you are working with us, I've actually got a client who's been working with me for a while now. She's coming to do her first hot water rebirth next month, and she's really excited about it, but nervous about it all at the same time. But again, for us as facilitators, it really helps us take our clients further for them to become the person they want to become and clear out their own house.
That's it. It's just a more in-depth tool. You know?
Yeah. The hardest part is finding good snorkels.
That's
actually the hardest part.
The hardest part
if
is
you're
finding
listening to this and you are some sort of, you know, wizard in a, you know, 3D printing game, or, you know, maybe you work for a diving company and you've got some new snorkels that haven't been on the market and they're quite wide and they've got a movable mouthpiece and they've got a blowout valve, please let us know.
Yeah, for sure. We're in the market. Yeah, so it's beautiful, man. So have been going back and doing our facilitator training. Yep. And as you say, it's like it's been a new depth, man. Like these last 4 months have been just another evolution, both in understanding the facilitation process, being on the other side, where you're actually guiding people in depth and a group through the rebirthing process. Like, what do you feel like your biggest takeaway's been over the last 4 months?
My biggest takeaway has been the realization of my mistrust in the feminine. Like, that is a core. Like, that came to me in the womb. They got given to me in the womb.
Yeah,
you know.
And it was a really simple statement that made that land in you, eh?
Real simple.
Yeah,
it was real simple. It was just like the first one was when we were doing that walk around with the demonstering.
Yeah,
and I was like, "Oh, that's interesting that I acted that way with all those women." I'm like, "Oh, I've got to call that out." And then I was like, "All right, well, yeah, that happened." And then it was just a deep dive through that. And then obviously going on the show, which I'll talk about in a later podcast, that really opened it up, because that really pushed me through to my emotional edge where it blew me over, where I didn't know who I was. And then back into the rebirthing. And then there was just some full exposure, like real full exposure. And then having to look at that premise. But there's a lot. I mean, as I said to you earlier, like, I'm on tilt. Like, I'm looking in the mirror every day and I'm like, who are you? Like, who are you? I'm really on a, fuck, everything's just shedding right now. Like, really fucking shedding. And it's really tough but exciting at the same time. And going back and doing our rebirthing course is the main operative of that. I mean, there's lots of other things that are really helping, but this is the main core of it. But yeah, if there's one takeaway, that would be it. And then, because that rolls into, and I've spoken about a lot of hair, I'm always trying to work on moving into my softness, but as you said last week, I didn't understand what that actually felt like. And then moving into that core wound, I'm like, if I've got mistrust in the feminine and I'm trying to move into
the feminine in yourself,
how can I move into that? It's like, it's those eureka moments that we fucking earn, man. And so it's just building on that. And again, I'm just at the very beginning stage of integrating that, you know, and obviously we're going back 2 more weeks to go and do some more work.
Yeah.
But that's probably the biggest takeaway, I would say.
Beautiful, man.
Yeah.
And that's huge. That's huge. And it has been, it's been dope to see that evolution in you, because it's like something that you've known and something you've been trying to work on and like land in for such a fucking long time.
Yeah.
Like realistically last year, you know?
Last year.
And it's beautiful to just like see the click and then naturally feel the shift.
Yeah, well, you guys will feel it. You guys will be the ones that feel it.
Yeah, totally.
Even I can feel it.
Yeah, for sure.
It's been like an instant change. Like, I'm just a lot more bubbles around the house, you know? Everyone's a little less triggered by me, you know? Because I'm like, all right, great, I know how this feels. But then, you know, if I need to go and do some business shit, it's like, okay, cool, I can step up into that fucking realm that I know so well.
Yeah.
So that's been huge, man, you know? But yeah, I'm feeling very... like there's no land under my feet right now. But that's okay. Like, I'm really okay with that, because what comes next is what I build.
Totally.
You know, and it's not going to happen overnight.
For sure.
And
it never does.
It'll take a little while.
Well, it goes back to the podcast when we were talking about the healing process, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, you just keep grinding away, and healing spontaneous. You know, it's just a culmination of all the different things.
Yeah.
You know, and that happened in a moment, but it was the build-up of everything that happened before it, just to open up that ability for you to tap into that wound and understand it. And it was like everything just lines up perfectly, because we're constantly putting ourselves in situations where we're open to change. We're curious about these limiting aspects of ourselves, and we know that if we don't work through them, it's just going to give people places to hide.
Yeah, and it just holds us back, and we aren't to be held back.
No, we're just holding ourselves back.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, and so with that comes the great unknown, you know, and that's again a scary place to be, but it's just maneuvering all of that. But everything in my life is unknown right now. Business is constantly unknown. We don't know what we're doing, man. We're just working out as we go. My life is unknown right now, because I'm not being manipulated by some past versions of myself. I'm like, okay, I really need to like work out where it is that I want to go from here. And that's great because I can make a plan, and as that plan needs to deviate, I'll change that. And myself, I'm in the complete unknown because I'm like, who are you? And that's a beautiful place. And like I shared with you before, like I had quite a bout of anxiety today, which was really interesting. I hadn't really felt it like that before, but it's just the old self trying to grip on, I think, and it's just being like, hey motherfucker,
how you going to show up? How you going to show up to this person that you haven't seen in this?
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, that's cool, and went and did it, and just was me, and it was beautiful. But and I left there and had none. So all the signals, everything come from the body, and we're just fortunate enough that we've got processes and people around us that hold us to the highest standards for us to do our work.
Totally, and it's a gift, man. It's a privilege. Really is a privilege to be in the places that we are, in the spaces that we are, and to be able to serve people in the way that we do as well.
100%.
Because there's so much depth to it. And for me, that's probably the biggest thing that I've taken away from going back and doing the facilitator training is like being on the other side. It's like when people feel safe and they trust you, they're really willing to go to the depth of themselves.
Yeah.
Even when it feels uncomfortable, even when it feels unorthodox, even when it could be uncomfortable, challenging. And in other spaces, people will be like, oh, that's too much, or you can go too deep. But when you trust yourself, trust the process, trust that the breath and the body and the situation will only ever bring up what is right and true in that moment, then you can trust that everything's going to be fine. You can trust that people have the capability to manage themselves, that the group has the capability, that the practitioners have the capability to really guide people through the healing process, and understanding that, even in a 12-month process, the work's not done.
No.
It's merely just about teaching you a tool. It'd be like if you went to university and then did nothing with a degree. It's sort of a waste of time. But if you're going, and the people who have gone into it, if they go into this process and realize that this isn't just about them healing everything, this is about them learning the tools to be able to heal themselves and others and to continually use them, then the growth's going to keep happening.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like when we finished our facilitator training, it was every single week for a year we called up for a rebirth.
Every week.
And that's just gave us such a depth and connection with the breath. And like that's the reason we've come back and like made it our dharma to train other people in it and to guide other people to the depths of themselves. And
it created the depths of our brotherhood.
Totally.
Because it was a very masculine thing to do. We booked an appointment, 9 o'clock on Wednesdays. We got together, you and Nelson. We breathed together. We were working through our stuff together, or separately, but at the same time. And then this is where our trust and safety was built with each other, so we could like come together and, create our company, create our friendship, all of that. So there was a lot that came from just the action of taking our own healing into our own hands.
Totally, brother. Also had a fucking big one last week in the warm water, where it's such an interesting thing to frame and to like put out into the ether.
I know, bro. I know. But just fucking do it.
Just do it. So the thing that came up for me in the warm water rebirth the other week was embracing physical immortality.
Yep.
Embracing that I'm a master. Embracing that I can choose to live forever.
Mm-hmm.
And realizing that one of the missions on this cycle round is to do that. Is to show people that it's possible to live forever. Because that's a lot of the premise of rebirthing. And when we spoke about the story before, and we speak about the immortal that is Babaji, and essentially the person that gifted rebirthing to the West, it's like when you go, like tried and true rebirthing practitioners embrace the idea, the concept, and the belief of physical immortality.
Yeah.
And it's a powerful choice. It's a powerful choice. Because it gives me two things. It gives me time, and it gives me the ability to really allow myself to slow down even more, because what's the rush? If you've got forever, then what's the rush? And I've always felt this pressure to just have to keep going and learn more, and pressure and push and push and push and push. And I guess it ties even more into what came up in the cactus journey that we did when we were walking Tongariro, about the power of slowing down. You know,
the mountain will always be there.
The mountain will always be there, and life will always be there as well.
Yep.
And it was interesting. A point came up in the dry rebirth when it was essentially integrating the experience after the warm water. And David said to me, he goes, "What happens when your partner chooses to die?" And I was like, well, that's her choice.
Yeah.
You know, if she doesn't choose physical immortality as well, then that's her choice.
Well, it's ultimate non-attachment, man.
Ultimate non-attachment.
So then now you're just creating love for what you do have. You know, you're not holding on to something.
For sure.
You know, for the outcome's sake. It's like, well, here we are now. Let's have the best fucking time.
And that's true power in a relationship. And I can feel the energy shift in that, because it's like me and Van have been together for 5 years. Regardless of the work that you do, there's always going to be some form of attachment in that.
Yep.
Like energetic, spiritually, emotionally, you know, just the desire to have someone else in your life, the desire to connect with them, the way in which they understand you, the way in which you understand them. And it's like even the things that we're exploring outside of our own relationship with like consensual non-monogamy, it's like that idea of non-attachment constantly gets tested as well.
Yep.
So yeah, that's probably been the biggest thing. And it's like about, for me now, okay, how am I going to fully embrace that? How am I going to tell that story and feel comfortable in a way where it's actually me wanting to express and finding the way to express that and share, I guess, that gift for the people that choose it. Because most people don't want to live forever.
Well, I think you've really started, man. Like you know, like even just before this, you're like, well, how do I put this into words? It's like, well, you know the words, you just need to say them. Totally. You know, and here you are, bro. Like, congratulations. Mm-hmm. That's a big statement to put that onto the ether, because it is such a conflicting statement to society.
Totally.
You know, it really is.
And I still love it. Like inside me, my body.
Yeah, because there's a rebel in you, man.
Fuck
you know,
yeah.
There's a rebel in us. You know, like fuck the fucking establishment.
You got to be a rebirther.
I mean, yes, you know. I really liked after you did the hot water, and you were sharing Pauline, and I was still helping her, whoever I was working with, and heard Pauline go, "Yeah, you get it. Mike will get it, but it'll take him a while. It took David a while."
And I said, "Wow, we need someone to live together. Like, we need people to be here with us forever."
Yeah, totally. Well, we'll have a party, man. And to put it into context, she's 76, 77, and she says she'll have a child at 100.
Yeah. She said that's going to be her thing. She wants to have a child at 100 just to prove to the world that it's possible.
She fucking will.
She will.
I love that. Yeah. And here we are. This is the depth and openness of our podcast. You know, like it really is in a nutshell. We're telling you about.
You can't get deeper than that.
We fucking go deep on our rebirthing fucking episodes, eh? You know, if there's anything, you know, if there's any reporters that's end up listening to this at some point. Yes, this is my fucking statement.
Look, it was me that said it, not you. Right? For the record. Funny.
I love it, man.
Yeah, it's a beautiful journey, man, and the group that we get to guide through this experience with Paul and David is powerful, man. It's so empowering to watch people like willingness to go to the depth and like see the changes each week, like physically and spiritually and like just energetically. You know, people come up and they just look like completely different people each week, whether they're stuck in the depths or whether they're starting to rise up. You know, because it's a challenging modality. You know, it's a challenging modality because it brings to the surface the things that we've been wanting to avoid.
Yep. And my manifestor essence, my closed door essence, it's doing its work. It's triggering everyone around in that course, man. Like I'm like, there are some fucking rebirth things about me in the open. I'm just like, ooh, like I gotta like, all right, it's good. It's all right, you know. I just gotta like let them move through that while I feel the piercing daggers, and then allow that to just come out the other side and not be a part.
For sure.
So that's some big lessons for me as well. You know, just really knowing that that part of my makeup is being able to absorb those types of things. You know, and I think I'm doing pretty fucking well at it.
Beautiful, brother.
Yeah.
You're a big lad.
Yeah, exactly. It's like my energy, my physicality is like matching in the spiritual realm as well.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just getting, you know, I'm like, okay, like I'm built for this. This is part of my makeup, you know, and this is how I help and allow others to heal themselves. And it's been a big pill to swallow, man, but it's like, okay, I accept that.
Yeah, beautiful, brother. Yeah, well, it's powerful, of course, man, and like, because there's a lot of people that are close to us in that course as well.
Yeah.
And that really is the beauty of it, because you can see the interrelationship in it. And man, it's always such a tight knit group.
Yeah.
Afterwards.
Well, I have an ex-partner in there.
Yeah, there you go.
And that's
no wonder
going through all of that process, you know, and you know, and having to go through that process where we're at different levels with it, and then whatever she's had to move through it, it's really confronting, you know, and then that has to be out in the open, you know. So again, then I've still got to be involved in that, and it's like, you know, it's super powerful because it leaves it's just absolute authenticity. That's all it is. Absolute authenticity.
Yeah.
For your own healing.
100%. And it's like even within that, like I've had a rebirth around you as well.
Correct.
You know, and about the way in which we work, and the way in which like business works and things outside of our friendship.
Yep.
And it's like, it's beautiful because after the experience, there's the opportunity to communicate and talk about it and integrate it. And then also the beauty of it as well, because there's actually family members and other people and relationships in there, it's like it gives them the opportunity to be like, regardless of the people that's here, you have to allow yourself to go through and really breathe into what is present for you and allow it to come up, knowing that that's just going to support the other person in healing, even if it is directed at them, or even if it does trigger them, because if not, then you're actually just holding both of yourself back.
Yep. And it's going to be the people closest to you who are going to trigger you the most.
100%.
Like, that's the catch-22. So to not say what needs to be said about the people who are doing the most triggering to you, you're just holding everything back. And so that was really it was confronting, but it wasn't. Like when you were going through that, I was just, you know, doing a rebirth next to you. And like when it felt like it was piercing me, but I was like, it's just you going through your process. Like there was none of it that I took personally, and I was like, okay, well there's things there, however it's being voiced or whatever. That's just the minimizing into words to express the emotion, you know. And then obviously we spoke about it after, but we really set the example for everyone. And then last week, you know, like there were some family members really releasing some stuff with each other. Yeah, you know, and then allowed my ex-partner to be able to start releasing some of all her stuff as well, because it's like, this is what you need to do. And you know, when you bring, you know, because I mean, we probably bought 3/4 outside of 2 people there. We brought everyone together, so they're involved in our life. So it's like we set the tone of going, hey, look, the people closest to you are going to trigger you the most. So what you need to say and what you need to feel is probably about the people that are in this room. So 100%. Go into it.
And realistically, the things that you're going through, or the way in which the people in the room trigger you, are more often than not going to be tied back to previous experience as well, and they're merely just being mirrored. They're just merely there because they're ready to be worked through. Correct. And like that was it. It was like although things were directed at you for moments, it was going back to deeper wounds with childhood friends.
Yeah, your bullying and your cousins and all that stuff. For man. Sure. It's just and like. But we've done this enough now to understand that, you know.
It's always something deeper.
You know, it's like if somebody yells at you in the street, you know, really offhanded, it's most likely not about you. You are just the final cherry on top of whatever the hell they've been building up. For you know, somebody's road raging you in the car. Yeah, the little thing that you did might have triggered them, but it might have been... It's a build-up of something in their whole entire life that they are. And then it's become a habit for them to be angry or whatever. That's the way they project. So, yeah, it's on tilt, baby. On tilt.
Forever.
Here for it all. I know. Forever. Until we just turn into some mist and energetic. And
yeah, that's it. So we choose death. Totally. We can really live out and see what happens with all this craziness that is AI. It's going to be fun to see how the next 200 years evolve.
Yeah, totally. And just, really see if this is this last time round for this time of humanity before it kind of splurges back up again to something else.
100%, man. 100%.
It's a pretty morbid but cool thought at the same time.
Yeah, it's a wild ride that we're going to be on over the next few hundred years.
Yeah. And like, if you're here listening to us, you obviously see the world in some sort of way that we do as well. And so you see the craziness out there. Like, it's mad.
Well, you see, like the World Health Organization is essentially setting up for another pandemic.
Like, that won't go down.
People will revolt. And if they don't, I will.
Oh, we'll start it. We'll start it, man. I have no problems in doing that.
For sure.
We just got to do it hand-to-hand combat in this country. It's all right. I got a little bit of training behind me now. You got some training, man. It's all right.
We can fight. We can fight when we need to. If not, we just lay everyone down and tell them to fucking breathe.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's a fun time, man. And, sitting here, like, this is, as we've always said, it's great that you listen, but I would do this anyways, even if nobody did, because the integration, the ability to conversate and channel ideas, feelings, and emotions into context and words, man, it's helping everything.
For sure. It's an integration process. Yeah.
So if you're interested in rebirthing, in any form, as we always say, just reach out to us. We're very accessible. Can be done online. You can come to our rebirth studio. We won't put you in the water straight away. I generally have a rule of thumb, like, you got to do about 6 dries with me before you go and do any hot water and move into that realm. But it's if you're a breath worker, if you're holding space and breath working and you want to evolve and take that, well, watch this space, because it won't be far off till you and I are running our own
facilitator training.
Our facilitator training. You can come and train with us, and we can take you to the next levels as well. So it's all very exciting. Love life.
Life is good, man.
It is.
Life is good. Worked hard to get to this place.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And now we're just running the age of cash flow. That's the only thing. you start creating something and it just absorbs everything, and you're like, oh, yeah. Gonna sort that out.
It'll happen.
Oh, it's happening for sure.
Abundance and the prosperity is very close.
Yeah. But, when you're starting a company.
I was thinking about this the other day, the idea of physical, and I'm like, fuck, am I going to have to try and make money forever?
Yeah, it's like generational wealth for one.
Yeah. My generation.
It's like, it'll never be enough because I can spend it all.
I was like, God damn, there's going to need to be multiple things going on.
Yeah, you'd be like, in 200 years' time, you have $1 billion in your account. Be like, yeah, it's a cheeseburger, thanks.
Yeah. Totally. We're fighting off Mad Max.
It'll be fun. Awesome. Well, team, hey, look, if you've stuck around this long, I salute you. Thanks very much. It's amazing. And, we really appreciate your support. Can you give us a share? The more people that can listen, the more people we can bring in, the more people that can see the world in different ways. But, if this is just for you, then we love you.
We do. We definitely do. And, if you are intrigued, man, just reach out. Ask a question, be curious with life. Be curious with the experience. If it feels like it might be too much, or you're like, oh no, I don't want to try that, then try it.
What have you got to lose?
What have you got to lose, man? You have everything to gain and nothing to lose.
Yep. And if this is the first episode you've listened to, go back from the start. Start again. There's some really, really gold pieces of info that we drop. And if you're really interested in this is the 3rd podcast on our Rebirthing series. So go back and listen to Rebirthing 1.
How about we link them below as well?
Yeah, I'll check them into the show notes. That's exactly what I'll do. So go back and have a listen to the 1st and 2nd, and then you'll kind of get the picture again.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, everybody.
We love y'all. See you next week.
See you later.
Sure.